You ever feel watched before you even understand why your skin is crawling? Not just a passing feeling, but something slow, heavy, patient like the woods themselves. Know your name? Whisper it. Taste it. That's the feeling I got the moment we stepped out of the car and saw the cabin our Airbnb host called a peaceful weekend escape. Peaceful wasn't the word. The trees behind it were too still, too tall, too dark, standing like silent walls, with something breathing behind them. And I swear, as the door of the cabin creaked open on its own, it felt like the woods were smiling. It was supposed to be a cheap weekend getaway. Me, Chris, and Trey, 3 friends who grew up together, shared dumbass teenage adventures, and now, years later, just needed a break from jobs and bills and the constant headache of adult life. So when we found a cabin in North Carolina for nearly half the price of anything else in the area, we didn't think twice. We should've. Bro, this looks haunted, Trey said, shoving his hands into his hoodie pockets, like the cold could crawl through his skin. Chris laughed as he grabbed his bag from the trunk. Everything looks haunted to you. Last time you screamed at your own shadow. That shadow moved on its own. Man, it was your jacket on a hanger. Then why was it breathing? I tuned their argument out because something else had caught my attention. The open cabin door. No lights were on, but the interior was darker than it should have been, even with the sun dropping behind the pines. Darkness shouldn't have weight, yet it looked like a thick sheet hung over the doorframe. Did you guys open that earlier? I asked. Nope, Chris said. Maybe the host left it unlocked for us. Unlocked is one thing, I muttered. Wide open is another. As I stepped toward it, a gust of cold air drifted out like the cabin had been holding its breath until now. My arms prickled. Trey stopped behind me. Do you hear that? He whispered. We all froze. There was nothing. Completely nothing. No wind. No birds. No distant highway noise. Just silence, total silence in a place that should have been filled with frogs. Leaves, crickets, dash something. It was unnatural. The woods weren't quiet. They were listening. I pushed the door fully open. It groaned in a way old wood shouldn't. The inside was simple wooden walls. Small kitchen, a couch, 2 bedrooms, and a fireplace that looked like it hadn't been used in decades. Dust covered everything, but that wasn't what bothered me. What bothered me was the smell. Not rot, not mold. Something else thought like wet fur and cold earth. Bro, Trey whispered. Do you feel that? The floor vibrated, very softly, like something big was moving deep underground, but it stopped as quickly as it started. Like whatever it was had frozen the second we noticed. Probably an animal outside, Chris said, but he didn't sound convinced. We put our stuff down, argued about who got which bedroom, and pretended nothing felt wrong. That's what humans do. We ignore danger if we can explain even a tiny piece of it. But as the sky shifted from orange to blue to black, the cabin grew colder, like the temperature dropped 10 degrees in minutes. Chris checked the thermostat. It's not working. Then just turn on the heater, Trey suggested. It is on. That's when a loud cracking sound came from the woods behind the cabin. Then another, slow, heavy, measured footsteps, not animal footsteps. These were bigger. Trees creaked like something huge was brushing past them. We should check it out, Chris said before he could move. I grabbed his arm. Are you insane? That's not a deer. Trey's voice barely came out. Guys, look. The back window of the cabin faced the woods. A massive wall of darkness pressed between the trees. Not shadows. Not night. Something darker. Something moving. But not with the body of an animal. With the height of a tree. The shape slid between trunks like smoke. Tall enough that it blocked entire strips of moonlight when it passed. Chris exhaled shakily. Let's close the blinds. You think blinds are gonna stop that? Trey muttered. The figure paused. Right behind the cabin, we couldn't see its details. Just a faint outline, something tall, thin, with long arms hanging too low to be human. And as we stared, the shape tilted slightly, like it was listening. Then came the sound. Not a roar, not a growl, not a scream, a choked, low exhale, as if lungs the size of small cars released a slow, cold breath. The window glazed with frost instantly. "What the hell was that?" Chris whispered. "Inside," I said. "Everyone inside. Lock everything." We shut the blinds, locked the doors, double-checked the windows. The air grew colder, frosting over the kitchen faucet and the knobs. My breath turned visible inside the cabin. Outside, those heavy footsteps circled the walls. 1, 2, 3, slow, precise, curious. The cabin wall shuddered. Something dragged across it in its claws, something sharp and long. It scraped the wooden panels with a sound that made my bones vibrate. Trey backed into a corner. "We're gonna die. We're actually gonna die." "Shut up," Chris hissed. "Just shut up." Another thud hit the wall, hard enough for dust to fall from the ceiling. Then a shadow passed the one tiny sliver of window we hadn't covered. A tall, spindly silhouette with two long limbs and a misshapen head. It paused right in front of the glass. We didn't breathe. Then, in the faintest sound we'd heard all night, a deep sniffing began. Slow inhales, slow exhales. The glass fogged with each breath like it was smelling us through the wall. Chris mouthed, "Don't move." But Trey's phone vibrated in his pocket. A stupid notification chime echoed. Across the silent room. Everything stopped. The sniffing, the footsteps, the scraping. Then something hit the back window so hard it cracked instantly. A long, thin, shapen arm, a branch. No, it bent in ways. What couldn't? It tapped the glass. Slowly tap, 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 tap. Like knocking. Like asking to be let in. "Guys," Trey whispered, shaking uncontrollably. "What does it want?" As if answering him. The tapping grew faster. Tap dash, tap dash, tap dash, tap dash, tap dash, tap dash. Then it dragged its claw across the window, splitting the crack wider. The window strained, bending inward. "Go to the bedrooms," I whispered. "Go." Chris pulled Trey, and we rushed into the left bedroom and slammed the door shut. I clicked the lock and backed up silence. Then the bedroom wall bowed inward as something huge pressed against it. Drywall cracked. Plaster dust rained down. A long finger pushed through the wood like it was clay. Not a nail, not a claw. Something bone-like, sharp at the tip. It curled once, testing the air inside. Trey almost screamed, but Chris clamped a hand over his mouth. We backed into the farthest corner. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it would burst. The fingers slid back out slowly. Then everything stopped. No footsteps, no breathing, no movement, just silence again. We waited. 5 minutes, 10, 15, nothing. Chris whispered. Maybe it left. And that's when the closet door behind us clicked. We froze. It wasn't open before. None of us opened it. None of us were near it. But now, it was open by an inch. Cold air drifted out of the gap. Not normal cold. Wet, heavy, forest cold. Trey shook his head violently. No, hell no. The door creaked more, inch by inch, slowly, like something inside enjoyed the suspense. I grabbed the nearest thing, a lamp hand, raised it. The door swung fully open. Inside was darkness, not empty darkness. Something stood in the back, tall enough that it had to hunch to fit. Long arms dangled down. Wet footprints shimmered on the floor. Two pale shapes blinked, open eyes, inhuman, too wide, glowing faintly like dying embers. It wasn't trapped outside. It had been inside the footsteps. The scraping, the tapping, all distractions. While another one waited in the cabin. It leaned forward, and the room filled with the same choking exhale we'd heard outside, freezing the air instantly. The walls frosted. The ceiling crackled. The floor stiffened under our shoes. and it moved. Not fast, worse, slow. Like it knew we couldn't escape. Chris grabbed my arm. Run. We bolted for the door as the creature unfolded itself, hitting the ceiling with a sickening crunch. Something snapped its neck. No, it bent its body unnatural ways as it crawled out of the closet, arms scraping across the floor like knives. Trey screamed as the creature lunged. I grabbed the doorknob, yanked dash locked. How the hell I twisted again, harder. The knob wouldn't move. Behind us, the creature rose taller, its misshapen head tilting as if amused. I slammed my shoulder against the door. It didn't budge. The creature stretched its arm toward Trey, who stumbled backward onto the bed. Open the door, Chris shouted. I'm trying. Then the creature's arm lashed forward, and the cabin lights went out. Everything plunged into blackness. Trey's scream cut through the dark. Something heavy struck the bed. Chris grabbed me and forced me against the door, trying to protect me. But I reached blindly for the lock again. Clicked out the door, swung open. We fell out into the hallway and slammed it shut behind us. Something massive hit the door a second later, making it bulge. The bedroom window shattered. The creature had another way out. We ran, not outside, not into the woods, just away, anywhere but the cabin. Wasn't letting us choose. Every door we opened led back to the same hallway. Every attempt to escape looped us into the same room. The cabin was a maze now. Shifting beneath our feet, something whispered behind the walls, low, ancient, hungry. This place wasn't a rental. It was a trap, and we were already deep inside. Whatever lived here, a final crash echoed through the cabin. The creature was loose, and it wasn't alone. The creature was loose, and it wasn't alone. You ever try to run in a place that isn't real anymore? Where every hallway looks identical. Every turn leads you back where you started, and the shadows move differently each time you blink. That's what the cabin became, a twisting, shifting maze that didn't follow any rules of space or sense. The walls breathed, the floors pulsed, and somewhere inside, the creature from the closet dragged its limbs like wet branches against the wood, hunting us by the sound of our panic. The lights flickered above us once, twice, then flooded the hallway with a harsh yellow glow that made everything look sick and distorted. The shadows stretched wrong, longer, sharper, like they were trying to crawl across the floor to reach us. Chris grabbed my wrist so tight it hurt. Don't stop. Don't stop for anything. I'm not stopping, I choked out, even though my lungs were already burning. But where the hell do we go? Every door leads back here. We just keep trying, he said, almost shouting over the pounding thuds echoing from somewhere behind the walls. We find a way out. There has to be a way. His voice died, because the cabin lights buzzed, flickered out, and then the hallway extended, not forward, not backward, like the world behind us had suddenly grown deeper, darker, longer. The end of the hallway dissolved into pitch blackness that swelled like a living thing. The whole cabin groaned like its beams were being pulled apart. What is that? Trey whispered, but I already knew it was opening another path. Not for us, for them. A sound came from the blackness, not footsteps, not breathing, something dragging across the floor. Slow, rhythmic, wet, followed by a clicking noise, like someone tapping bone joints together. The lights trembled, dimmed, then surged brighter. Againa. Silhouette stepped into the faint glow. Tall, thin, arms, grazing the floor. Head slightly tilted like before. It wasn't the same creature from the closet. This one was taller, hungrier, and it wasn't alone. More shadows unfurled behind it, stretching into the hallway with unnatural slowness. 3, 4, maybe 5 figures moving with that same wet, dragging sound. Trey whimpered, "No, no, 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 no." Chris pushed him. "Run." We sprinted down the hallway, our shoes thudding against the wood, the cabin shaking with every step. Doors slammed shut around us on their own left, right, behind, shuttering us in. The shadow creatures slid after us, their limbs scraping deep lines into the floorboards like marking their territory. When we reached the end of the hallway, we skidded to a stop. It wasn't a wall anymore. It was a door, a huge one, not part of the cabin. Old wood, covered in dark stains, carved with symbols that looked burned into the grain. The knob was metal rusted, freezing cold to the touch. It didn't belong here. Open it, Chris shouted. I grabbed the knob. It burned, like ice instead of heat. I twisted nothing. I twisted again, harder. Locked behind us, the creatures grew louder, moving faster, their bodies gliding more smoothly across the floor. Trey, Chris yelled, try the other door. There is no other door. He was right. The hallway had collapsed behind the creatures. The cabin was reshaping itself again, funneling us toward this one impossible door. My heart slammed against my ribs as I tried the knob again, slamming my shoulder into it until pain shot through my arm. It won't open. Then something slammed into the other side of the door. We all froze. A heavy impact. Another. Something on the other side was hitting the door, hard, like trying to break through. What the hell is that? Trey whispered. Who cares? Chris said. It wants out, and we want out. The creatures closed the distance, their arms stretched unnaturally, fingers splitting at the ends like roots searching for something to dig into. One reached the back of Trey's shirt, grazing the fabric with bone-like talons. Open it, Trey screamed, voice cracking. I twisted the knob with every ounce of strength I had left. Click. The lock turned. The door swung open so fast, I fell through it. Cold air blasted in, real cold, the kind you feel outside, not the strange, heavy cold of the cabin. Real moonlight flooded my vision. I scrambled to my feet. Out. Get out. Chris shoved Trey through first, then dove through himself. I turned just in time to see one of the creatures lunge at us, its body bending in half so it could fit through the doorway. I slammed the door on its arm. The bone-like limb snapped. Its scream was like metal tearing in half. I kicked the door with everything I had, forcing the rest of its arm back inside before slamming it shut entirely. The door rattled behind me as the creatures pounded against it, but they didn't break through. We were outside. We were actually outside. We stumbled backwards into leaves and dirt, gasping like drowning people breaking the surface. The cabin behind us was completely dark, only its outline visible against the wall of trees. No lights, no movement, no sound. For a moment, just a moment, it was quiet again. Then Chris pointed. Guys, look. At first, I didn't understand what I was seeing. The cabin wasn't sitting still, it was breathing. The walls bulged like lungs filling with air. The roof creaked upward. The whole structure pulsed slowly, like it had a heartbeat under the wood. The windows fogged on the inside, then cleared, fogged, then cleared, like something exhaling inside. What kind of place is this? Trey whispered. Before we could answer, something hit the front window from inside so hard, the glass cracked again. A long, thin limb pressed against it, sliding across the pane like searching for a weak spot. Another limb joined it, then another. The creatures weren't trapped, they were gathering. We ran. We didn't pick a direction, didn't think, just ran straight into the woods behind the cabin. The same woods we swore we'd never step foot in after what we saw earlier. But the cabin was no safer. It had become a container of monsters, and at any moment they would spill out. Branches whipped our faces. The forest floor was uneven and thick with roots. Trey tripped twice, each time screaming for us to wait, and we picked him up, dragging him forward. The woods weren't silent anymore. Now they were alive. Something moved high above us, leaping from tree to tree, large enough that the branches shook under its weight. Shadows crawled across the ground behind us, stretching between trunks like oil. Leaves rustled in a way that sounded like whispering. And every few seconds, somewhere far off, or impossibly close, a deep exhale echoed through the darkness, the same slow, heavy breath that froze the cabin windows. "They're in the woods," I gasped. "No," Chris said. "They are the woods." We didn't stop, not even when the moonlight began to flicker as if something massive moved past it. Not even when we heard soft tapping on tree trunks around us. Not even when we saw shapes crawling onto the forest floor, rising on long limbs that bent the wrong way. The deeper we ran, the thicker the trees grew, twisting into unnatural shapes. Their roots poked through the dirt like skeletal fingers. Certain trunks bulged like faces were trying to push through the bark. I swear I heard something whisper my name. We burst into a small clearing and collapsed, gasping for air. The moonlight hit us in a pale circle. For a moment, it felt like maybe, just maybe, we'd outrun them. Then the forest exhaled again, louder, closer. The trees around us shifted slightly, like they were leaning in. "Don't look," Chris whispered. "Don't turn around." He stared at me, eyes wide, pupils huge. "It's behind us, and if we look, it'll come closer." Trey shook uncontrollably. "What do we do?" "We walk," Chris said, slowly. "Don't run. Don't." A twig snapped behind us. Not a small twig, a thick branch. Something tall was right at the tree line behind us. I felt it. A cold pressure on the back of my neck. The air grew so cold, my breath froze mid-air. Trey moved first. He turned. "No," I shouted. Too late. The moment he turned, a long arm shot out of the shadows and wrapped around his waist, yanking him into the dark. He screamed, clawing at the dirt, his nails tearing off as he tried to grab onto anything. Chris and I lunged for him. We caught his arms. Something pulled harder. His body lifted off the ground, rising into the air like he weighed nothing. His eyes bulged with terror. "Don't let go, please." A second arm wrapped around his leg and pulled in the opposite direction. The cracking sound that followed didn't sound human. Trey's scream ripped through the woods. Chris and I fell backward as Trey was torn from our grip and dragged into the darkness, his screaming fading until it cut off suddenly. The woods went silent again. Chris shook violently, whispering, "We have to leave. We have to leave now." I couldn't speak, could barely breathe. Trey's last scream echoed inside my skull, bouncing around until my thoughts were nothing but noise. We stumbled through the clearing, heading toward the faintest glimmer of moonlight that hinted at an opening in the trees. But before we could reach it, a figure stepped into our path, tall, bent, arms hanging, head crooked. It wasn't the same one from the cabin. This one was missing part of its face, and stuck inside the gaping hole was something pale, fabric, Trey. Single quotes as sweatshirt. The creature tilted its head at us, blood dripping down its chest, dark and thick. Its jaw unhinged with a crack as it released a slow, drawn-out exhale that fogged the entire clearing. Chris grabbed my hand, voice barely a whisper. "We're next." The creature reached for us, and the woods, once again, began to close, and the woods, once again, began to close. We ran. No thought, no direction, just forward. Every branch whipped at our faces like hands trying to pull us back. The forest was alive, breathing, bending, reaching. The moonlight flickered in patches, shadows twisting and crawling, following us with intent. I could hear Chris's ragged breathing beside me, but my own lungs felt like they were about to collapse. Then we stumbled into a small creek. Cold water rushed over our feet, slowing us just enough for the forest to catch up. Shapes moved on the banks, limbs long and twisted, heads tilting unnaturally as if testing our resolve. One of them reached into the water. I swear, it made the water hiss and steam like it burned under its touch. Chris grabbed my arm. "We can't stop," he shouted, eyes wide with terror. "We make it past the ridge, we're out." A loud crack echoed behind us. A tree-no. One of them was falling, blocking the path we came from. The creek narrowed into a ditch, and we climbed the opposite bank, mud sucking at our shoes. Every step felt like running through syrup, the forest tugging at us, urging us back toward its darkness. Then I saw it, a cabin, not the one we left, but another, or maybe the same one, reshaped, waiting, windows glowing faintly, a soft exhale of cold drifting from inside, and at the doorway, the tall, bent figure we'd seen last, Trey's sweatshirt draped over its twisted frame. It tilted its head, observing. Patient. Chris shook his head. We can't. Something moved in the tree line. Faster this time. More figures, slinking, stretching, merging with the shadows of the forest. They whispered, with voices like rustling leaves, calling our names in broken echoes of Trey's screams. I grabbed Chris's hand. We go through it. No other choice. We ran. The doorway loomed ahead like a promise and a threat at once. As we crossed the threshold, the cabin's interior swallowed us. Walls twisted, stretching into impossible angles. Shapes moved in the corners of our vision. Too fast, too dark, too many. The floorboards groaned, ceiling warped, and the air itself pressed against our lungs. Then silence. We looked around. The creatures were gone, or at least, we couldn't see them. Only the smell remained. Wet earth, burning wood. Something wrong beneath it all. And in the corner, something small and peltry. Alive, but different. Eyes empty, skin pale, whispering in a voice that wasn't his. They'll come back. Chris and I didn't speak. We didn't breathe. The cabin had taken him and returned him, a warning we couldn't ignore. We moved carefully to the door. This time it opened. Outside, the night air was sharp and clean, the forest behind silent, almost patient. We didn't stop. We ran past the trees, the creek, the ridges, until the first hint of dawn touched the horizon. And even as the sun rose, I felt it in my back. The forest watching, breathing, waiting. We made it out, but the cabin, the creatures, the darkness, they were still there. And I know we will return, even if we try not to. If you want to survive the horrors lurking in the shadows, and uncover the full truth behind stories like this, make sure you subscribe now, because the woods are never done, and neither is the darkness.